Why do you think anxiety is seemingly at an all-time high today?
Yeah, emotions they're like the ocean waves. Or you can have those little ripples, you can have huge waves. Sometimes we need to learn how to surf the wave.
Breathwork Detox. This is something that you've pioneered, and I want you to explain to us what that is.
The soul wants to be present, but the body holds on to the past.
It's also an interesting phenomenon because we actually store past traumas. Can you expand on that?
Interesting, when you look at the average human thoughts, they did studies. 55,000 thoughts we have per day on average, and 80% of our thoughts are negative and 20% are positive. Kind of interesting if you look at the news and then our thoughts. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you wrestle with stress? Why are so many of us anxious today? Is it a problem for you? Our guest today may have some answers for us. He's a corporate mindfulness trainer, one of the leading ones in the world, and we're going to speak to him about the different things he does. He's also a keynote speaker. Please welcome Kurtis Lee Thomas. Kurtis, thanks for being here and making time to hang out with us today.
Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you've done some different talks, and I had a chance to preview some of the work that you're doing, and it's pretty interesting, and I think it hits on some key things that people wrestle with today. And I want to start just by asking you, why do you think anxiety is seemingly at an all-time high today?
Well, a lot of people don't feel comfortable in their own bodies. There's, chemical issues and things that we're eating, ingesting, listening to, everything. It's, negativity is omnipresent. If you look at the news, 80% of the news is negative news, right? Because they know how to market to, our psyche. And also, 20% is positive. And it's interesting when you look at the average human thoughts, they did studies, 55,000 thoughts we have per day on average, and 80% of our thoughts are negative and 20% are positive. Kind of interesting if you look at the news and then our thoughts. I'll just leave it at that. But the crazy thing is 98% of our thoughts are the same thoughts we had the day before. So people are stuck on this hamster wheel of just these negative thoughts that turn into emotions, and it's really difficult to take the time and energy and conscious effort to break that cycle in the neural pathways in the brain to begin to reprogram your mind and your body so you don't feel this as a default anymore. So I'd say everything is the reason why people are feeling anxiety. And you'll hear people say, anxiety comes from when you think in the future. The mind does tend to want to always think in the future. The soul wants to be present, but the body holds on to the past. So I think a lot of our issues is really not learning how to let go of the things that we're holding on to. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And, you mentioned emotions, and I feel like a lot of us, and I know I do this, we let our emotions run wild sometimes, and our emotions and how we feel aren't always like tethered to reality. It's this false perception we can create in ourselves. And I think that's something a lot of humans wrestle with. And you're right, all those external factors just pull us further and further into a negative emotional state. But I think that once we, and I'm not speaking as a master because I still wrestle with, I wrestled with that this morning, like straight up. But I think that once we can try to work on that on ourselves and realize that emotions aren't really reflective of reality around us all the time, I think we can stop ourselves when we start going down those negative thought patterns. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Emotions they're like the ocean waves. Or you can have those little ripples, you can have huge waves. And, sometimes we need to learn how to surf the wave and realize that, we can control it even though it seems uncontrollable. And, little exercises, the hardest part of doing these exercises is just doing them. And, that's if you're in a really negative state. And if you just take a piece of paper and write down 10 things you're grateful for. Now, it sounds like very cliche, very trivial, but when you do that, when you're in a bad mood and you write down 10 things you're grateful for, after you write those 10 things down, your mood and state would have changed. And you're like, wait a second, I was just feeling bad. And if I didn't do this exercise, I'd probably still be feeling that same way. But I did it, I'm feeling better. it proves to you that you do have the ability to control your emotions. And, Tony Robbins and people like that, they talk about this all the time. It's all about changing your state, having the power and the ability to change your state. So that's what I focused on, developing or teaching tools that change your state and actually work and move the needle.
So you touched on some different things, and I want to get into that. But first, I wanted to just ask you about trauma. And I've heard you speak on this in the past, and you had mentioned that we store trauma in the body. And I agree with you on that. And I once heard an osteopathic doctor who explained to me that this is also an interesting phenomenon because we actually store past traumas. Can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Yeah. Well, one thing I realize is that as I get older, and as we get older, we need to redefine our definition of pain and trauma. And if we take, our ages right now versus when we were, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, not getting picked in dodgeball or getting pushed off the swing by a bully, those things for a kid that age is traumatic. It's trauma. And, the problem is as children, we don't have the emotional intelligence to process that as being like, that person, his dad's probably really abusive and he's only picking on me because he's hurt and hurt people. And, we're not thinking like that. We're like, I'm nobody, I'm small, I'm puny, everybody hates me. But the issue is because we don't have the emotional intelligence to process that, we store it in the body. And then we revisit it when we do. But the problem is this thing happens to us along the way called life, and issues compound and you get compounded interest. And next thing you know, your body is riddled with all these negative experiences that you haven't processed, and you're carrying all this emotional baggage. Emotional baggage doesn't just come from a breakup. Just sprinkle the breakups and the failures and the heartbreaks on top of all the other things that, got, driven down into our subconscious and unconscious. And, our bodies end up becoming a living library of these experiences, and why they say the issues are in the tissues. So if we don't clear these things out and, release them, it can wreak havoc on our nervous system, causing anxiety and depression and just really not feeling comfortable in your own body.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many different, I don't know if they all work, but there's so many different modalities. And I've seen, this same osteopathic doctor just do different, techniques where they stretch different areas of the body. And there's more like, physical manipulation. I think they call it osteopathic manipulation, where they would release some of those traumas, and you can actually fix things like your posture and these different physiological issues that manifested probably from past traumas. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Past traumas. Some people will go even deeper and say that we will carry trauma from past lives. So I had the shaman give me a great analogy, and she explained, if you look at an airplane, right? An airplane has something called the black box in it. And what that black box does is it's indestructible. So no matter what happens to that plane, implodes, explodes, goes in the water, in the mountains, whatever, that black box stays intact. And what that black box does is it records everything that's happening on the plane, the pilot, the co-pilot, the messages are getting received of what's happening during that time. So if everybody dies on the plane and the plane gets blown to smithereens, that indestructible black box is somewhere. Now, no one knows where it is because, it could have went, all these different places. So it has this little beacon, beep, beep, beep. And the goal is to find the black box. Well, humans have these dark crystals or these, black boxes in us of trauma that's been stored from, previous times. So when we search and we end up finding it, whether it's, purposely or inadvertently, we'll hit upon that. The goal is to open up, that black box and see, what happened? Why am I like this? Why do I get triggered when this happens. And when you be able to see all of that, oh, it's because of this, and those memories come to the surface. It's just like the black box. Once they have the information, now they relay it to the families, and then the families, they feel relieved. They have a sense of closure. They know what happened. People can heal and process. And we find these areas within ourselves, the unpacking can be really, wild and dangerous and scary. But once it's processed, it makes sense. And then we can create healing, a cascading and landslide of healing within our body. So I thought that was a wonderful way of explaining, how that works within us.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, man. Tell me about the Breathwork Detox. This is something that you've pioneered, and I want you to explain to us what that is.
Yeah. So it's a deep diaphragmatic breathing technique, and I kind of took all my experiences that I've had for the past decade, and I started out off as a international sports science fitness professional. Then I became a life coach, hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, Reiki master, and breathwork coach. And when I found this ancient, practice that wasn't mainstream yet, it was actually the only thing that truly moved the needle for me. Mind you, I've been to the jungles of Peru and drank ayahuasca over, 20 times by now. And
you've done ayahuasca 20 times?
Yeah, I'm actually, I've taken groups there and, led them through, but as a participant, the original Shipibo people, I let them do that. And
oh man, all right, we'll have to come back to that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole another can of worms. But the purpose is, life is a journey, and on this journey we have more questions than we do answers. And on my personal journey, I was trying to get to the next level of spiritual awakening. I was also trying to heal myself. And along the way, I found this healing technique, breathwork. And for 5 years, I was actually suffering from a stomach condition where doctors couldn't diagnose me, never mind heal me. And it was bad. I was feeling like tortured. That's how bad it was. And the fact that doctors couldn't help me, I felt helpless. So when I found this technique, it completely eradicated my stomach condition in one session. And I couldn't wrap my brain around how that was possible, considering I had all these certifications. I did all these things. I've been to the jungle, and nothing could do it. But this one breathing technique did. Then I realized, oh, wow, the reason why these doctors couldn't tell me what was wrong with me, because my issue wasn't physical. It was energetic. It was emotional. They don't know jack shit about that. They just want to give you a pill and have you suppress it. Okay, I get it. I'm not against Eastern, Western medicine. I think it's the blend of both of them, right? If I break an arm or get a root canal, give me the pain meds,
Yeah, right.
Novocaine,
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not that guy who's going to say, rub a plant on my gums. So, I think it's the blending of the two. But yeah, my issue was energetic. It was stuff that I was holding on from childhood that I, didn't even know was there until I released it. And breathwork, became the vehicle that could house all of those other cool certifications and skill sets that I had. And I just found a way to synthesize all of these things into one profound modality. And it's called Breathwork Detox. And, detox is a thing that we all need to do, and not just physically. You hear Master Yoda from Star Wars saying, you must unlearn what you've learned when he's training Luke. And then also you must empty your cup before you fill it up. And from this, I wrote a whole book on the laws of the universe and manifesting. And, that was 2014. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, what I realized, the most powerful thing you can do to manifest isn't learning how to manifest, because you're already doing it every single day. You're thinking about what you want. You're feeling the emotions, maybe not, you're not taking action. That's another.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that we need to let go before we can let in. And a lot of people are holding on to a lot of junk and gunk in their lives. And if you use the analogy of airplane, right, in an air traffic controller, if there's something on your runway, the air traffic controller is going to tell you can't land or take off. And until that runway is cleared, So what
Yeah.
are they going to have you do? They have you circle in the air until it's cleared. And this is why a lot of people feel like they're just circling in life. They know what to do, but they don't do what they know, and they can't manifest. They can see it, but they're not getting it. It's because they need to let go of whatever previous past hurt, grudges, trauma,
Mhm.
forgiveness, all these different things that can get in the way and block our manifestations. And letting go before we let in is a big part of manifesting.
Yeah. So why do you think it is that it's so hard for people to let go? What is it that so many of us hold on to?
There's a saying that goes, "Let go or get dragged." And a lot of us are getting dragged, and I think for most part, it's our identity. Our identity is attached to a lot of the experiences that we have, and we get caught in the habit of telling a story, and that story is what validates our pain, but it also is what keeps the trauma alive. So it's like, what story have you been telling yourself over and over again that you're finally ready to let go of, even if it's true? Because they say the reason why we don't heal isn't because of our biology, it's because of our biography. The same BS story we keep telling ourselves over and over again. And I think that's what it is. We create these stories and these beliefs and attach it to our identity. And then once it goes into our identity, it's really hard to let these things go because we believe that's who we are. And I think that's what makes it really tough.
Do you think we know deep inside that it's BS, or do you think we're trying to kid ourselves?
I think deep down we know it's BS.
Yeah, I do too. I do
I
too.
do, man. And I mean deep down. It's like, 90% we believe it, but like maybe like 5-10% we know it's
Yeah.
it's it's BS. And I think like the solution or the remedy is really just being radically honest, brutally honest with yourself. And if you can learn how to do that, you can go far in life, because then you found a way to bypass the ego. Because that's, the ego doesn't want to hurt us or kill us. That's not the ego's job.
Yeah.
The ego's job is to protect us. All it means,
Yeah.
even if it's silly things and it's, parts of ourselves that emotionally will feel hurt, ego just wants to protect us and make us, feel a certain way. And if you can be brutally honest with yourself, you can go real far in life.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I've experienced the power of breath work somewhat recently in my own life. I got a friend who's like top of the line biological dentist. Ingo, if you're listening, big shout outs to you. But he put me on this thing called the Relaxator. Are you familiar with that little
No, but
tool?
I love it. You have one? I want to.
It's
Like,
awesome. Yeah, I don't have it here, man.
man.
It's actually I have it in the car. I use it, when I try to be deliberate about lying down. What it does is, and you'll know this being a breathwork guru yourself, but it's the when you activate that parasympathetic where you calm yourself, you have to slow your breathing down, right? Like you got to slow it down. It's that quick, shallow breathing that we do when we're stressed, when you've got that adrenaline pumping, that we're not reaching that state of relaxation. So the relaxator has settings on it where you inhale normally, but then you exhale and it creates pressure so you can't breathe out fast,
Mm.
kind of slows things down. So you're breathing out against kind of like a pressure. And so I'll do it for 15-minute intervals. I try to do it daily, but I let that slip just with my schedule. How it brings blood pressure down is phenomenal. Like it brought my blood pressure down like 15 points. And not that I have a blood pressure issue, but I just watch the biological effects of it. Sometimes when I stand up after I do it, I'm lightheaded because my body's so chill. And I never get lightheaded when I stand up out of the bed. But I do this. I just put on a timer. I put my phone on airplane mode so it doesn't bother me. And it's like an escape. And I feel like another person. Like I feel like I downed like a bottle of Ativan. You know what I'm
Yeah, yeah.
saying? And it's amazing. And so, I mean, people who haven't done that, and I know that getting into breath work can be intimidating. It's a process. They might feel like it's too much. But even that little tool, you can buy it on Amazon for $30, and the wonders it can do for stress management are phenomenal. So you're preaching to the choir when you're talking about breath work, man, because I've experienced it myself, and it's wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm familiar with those devices, so I'm actually going to look up your buddy and check his out.
Okay.
And
yeah, Dr. Ingo Mon. It's not his, but he recommended it.
okay, great.
But if you just look up Relaxator, yeah, it's a great little tool for $30. You don't have to renew a prescription. You can use it, multiple times a day, and just the way it de-stresses is unlike anything I've ever used. I used to just do, breathing exercises on my own and just lie down. But when you have this tool, it just really, really, really like releases that stress in a profound way.
Yeah.
And anybody who's dealing with stress, try it. It's simple, and like I said, $30 on Amazon.
Yeah, it's funny because at one point in my life, pre breath work, I was having bad anxiety attacks, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and I was on Ativan. So it's funny you said Ativan.
Oh wow!
And,
yeah, that's the go-to, man.
That's the go-to, man. I thought it was saving me, and then one day I went to go get my refill, and there was this Asian doctor who walked in. I was like, "Hey, where's my doctor?" She's like, "Oh, she's out." And I was like, "Okay, man." I hope I'm going to get my refill. And she told me, she's like, "Hey, I see your symptoms, what you're dealing with," and it was a rough time. Like my house burnt down. I lost my brother. It was very, very bad time in my life. And she goes, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna refill your prescription. Don't worry. But I want to tell you, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going down a very, very dark path." And I was like, damn, reminded me like a Star Wars like line. I'm like, man, I don't like that. Why you say that? And she's just like,
you're ramping up my anxiousness.
And she attempted to explain to me is that when you feel like you have an anxiety attack, you have those pills and they make you feel comfort. And when you take the pills, you're actually triggering the anxiety rather than treating it. Because when you're, a lot of this is actually the mind. It's really just, the mind. And she convinced me, listen, if you can just do this one breathing technique, next time you feel like you're having an anxiety attack, and that's kind of what that tool does, right? Is it regulates the CO2 and the oxygen inflow. So she said, pucker your lips like you're going to kiss or like a fish. And she goes, and I want you to breathe regular. Don't push out. Don't push in. Breathe regular through the constricted airspace of the puckered lips. And you do that until it subsides. She goes, you're going to feel like you're going to die in the process. But if you can hold tight, then you'll see the wonders of what it can do. So mind you, fast forward, I'm living in the basement of my mom's house. My house burnt down, and my panic attacks were so bad that I had a bell by my bedside. So I could ring the bell so my mother could hear it because I couldn't scream for help. Because anyone who has a panic attack,
Really?
and I'm a grown man, mind you, so this is kind of pathetic. Yeah. But anyone who really had an anxiety attack, panic attack, they know it's like death. It's the equivalent to dying without dying or having a heart attack. So 3 a.m, I'm having one. I wake up, my first thing, now mind you, 3 a.m, I had one. There's no dangers going on. I grabbed the pill bottle, I open it up, and I was taking 3 Ativan at a time during a panic attack. I put 3 in my hand. You're only supposed to have one. And right before I go to swallow those pills, I just hear this fucking lady's voice. "You're going down a dark path." I was like, oh, no. So I literally just closed my eyes and I just started doing this little silly breathing technique. And I just doing it. And I felt like I was going to pass out. My throat was going to close up. And then right before I decided I was going to quit, I just did one last one. And then all of a sudden it was like, it's like a popping noise. It was like, and then all of a sudden, all my vitals went back. The anxiety lifted off of me, and I was boom right back to not even regular. I felt like peaceful, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I put the pills back in, and I didn't need any more ever again. And that was from a breathing technique. Now, I did not become a breathwork coach then. It took me a lot more trauma to get there. But that was a huge thing where I was like, wow, the breath is really that powerful. And then I thought about it. when you take those pills have to go in your mouth. They have to go in your intestine, down your, into your stomach, get absorbed into your small intestines, then go into your bloodstream. It's at least 20 minutes before you feel the effects. So when you take them, then they're no good for a panic attack. You need your panic attack. You fix that on the spot. So I was like, wow, the breath is more powerful than any pill you could ever swallow. And that was a huge, huge lesson in breathing technique. Now, what I teach now, Breathwork Detox, is completely the opposite. It is very cathartic. It's the closest thing to like DMT and ayahuasca. It's very different than those particular techniques. Now, I teach those techniques as tools that people can put in their back pocket. But the Breathwork Detox is more of like a journey.
Wow. So take me through that. You literally, your panic attack just like stopped in an instant. Cause I've dealt with those. I know what those feel like. And it's a complete, why they're so terrifying and why I can, empathize with people who deal with them is it's just this feeling of terror and helplessness and impending doom, right? Like it's literally like the fear of death. You've got adrenaline racing through you, your heart's pounding, it's terrifying. And it's complete loss of control, right? I mean, that's how I've experienced it. Would you describe it as a similar?
Pretty accurate.
Yeah. So you started doing that breathing with the puckered lips, and you said it instantly just kind of vanished after a few seconds.
I'd say anywhere between probably four inhales and 4 exhales. That's what it took.
Really? That fast?
Well, it's not really that fast because when your mouth is constricted like that, it's you're breathing much slower, and that slowness is what kind of registers with the nervous system that, oh wait, maybe I'm not freaking out. Because when people freak out, they're like, right, they take in a lot of oxygen. That's why they say breathe in a paper bag, right? So you can breathe back in the CO2, which kind of tricks the system into thinking that you're not, freaking out and hyperventilating. So having that constricted, let me just tell you, that 4 breaths felt like a lifetime.
Yeah,
it was only 4 breaths.
I can imagine.
It was only 4 breaths, which it really was short. But while you're doing it, it's you don't believe it's going to work at all. It was not a fraction of a belief that technique was going to work until the very last one, where it's like it might have even been 3 and it felt like 4. But when you're in it, it's timing is very different.
Yeah. But that's like you're saying, I know it felt like an eternity in your mind, but 3 breaths.
Nothing.
That's fast, man. That's a lot faster than anatomy.
Yeah, a lot. Like we said, 20 minutes at least, So
that's incredible. Yeah. So you said the breathwork detox is totally different and it's cathartic. Take me through that.
Yeah. So how it works is I do these virtually and in person, mostly virtually. And we do them every new moon and full moon. So every 2 weeks. So people will log on 27 different countries all over, and they just lie down on their back, right? They can be fully clothed. They can have a yoga mat. It could be their bed or the couch. They lie down on their back, and then they go through this very specific breathing technique that I teach them. And there's music being played in the background. So it's not like kumbaya meditation music. It's very yang energy. So it's like we're building people up within the first couple songs, and then we kind of taper down towards the end. So it's like a very much a journey. And while they're breathing, they're flooding their entire system with oxygen, with vital life force energy. And the body's not used to this, specifically the nadis. So the nadis are these energetic highways within our body that a lot of scientists and medicine, they're not talking about. Now, Vedic medicine and, Eastern medicine, they do, because that's what's, Tai Chi and acupuncture, they'll work with those energy centers. But we have 72,000 of them that run through our body. And, the stomach is the Times Square of all those energy centers. So we breathe deep down into the belly, in through the mouth, out through the mouth, then the chest, and then release. And we continuously do this. There's no rest, no pause, no hesitation. And what this does, the breath is the only thing that's connected to all 72,000 energetic channels in your body. So there's nothing more powerful, not acupuncture, not even ayahuasca, that will work directly with these energy channels. And a lot of people have junk and gunk in their energetic highways, right? So if you think of emotions, energy in motion. And when that energy is not in motion, it creates a impediment, a blockage. And if you were to take running water and there's a block, well, that'd be like a dam and the water would have to go somewhere it's not supposed to. Well, when there's a blockage in our energy field from an unhealthy belief system or trauma or an emotion that's stuck, then that energy, that chi, that prana, isn't going where it's supposed to go, and it goes somewhere it's not supposed to go, and that's what causes anxiety. That's what causes us to feel uncomfortable in our own bodies. And this breath work clears all these energetic pathways, which is why 60 to 70% of all the people that do my breathwork class, they'll cry. Now,
really,
100%. There's no less than half the people. Sometimes it's up to 80% of the people. Now I'm talking about, I've also done this for the most masculine men on the planet. NFL players, war veterans, Navy SEALs, prison inmates, the numbers are the same. And sometimes those people cry more because, sometimes it's not the weight of the baggage, but it's how you carry it. And a lot of people who think, or they're so-called strong, they carry it very well. Right? They can't be soft in front of their teammates or their family, or their brothers, and even, single mothers, right? There's a lot of things they hold on to and suppress because they need to be strong for their kids and they can't seem weak and they want to cry every day and they don't. So all this stuff that we all hold on to. And when you start this breathing technique, it washes away. And that's what they used to call it back in the day, body washing, washing your emotions. And you all of a sudden you start just crying. It's extremely cathartic. And that's what happened to me. My very first time I did it, I did the biggest, ugliest cry. And thank God I did, because that cry is what actually healed me. That one session, that one cry. Yeah. Because I wasn't crying pain. I was actually crying tears of joy, because at that moment I witnessed something that I was holding on to for my entire life. And when I seen it leave me, I feel energetically lifted. I felt more lighter, buoyant. And it was just so joyful to realize that you can actually let go of these things. And you know what, Mike, you mentioned this earlier. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a conscious release, right? I didn't go there and be like, I am going to release this thing that happened to me when I was a kid. I just went like, hey, let me just go to this thing open-minded because I'm desperate. And when I went into there with desperation, just, completely open-minded and surrendered to the experience. And during the process, it came up. And that's the thing. The breath is extremely intelligent. And I believe it's extremely intelligent because when you start this breathing technique, you begin to microdose dimethyltryptamine in your system. And dimethyltryptamine is DMT. It's responsible for, when you dream at night. It's the most amazing, award-winning virtual reality system on the planet. And we all do it every single night. And it's the main component in ayahuasca. And it's actually called the spirit molecule. And they did a whole documentary on Netflix about it. And we begin to microdose it from the lungs. It's also produced in the pineal gland, but actually more in the lungs. And I believe that it explains the mystical experiences, because people will come to a breath work. They'll be like, oh my God, I healed from this. I talked to my grandmother who passed over. My dog came in, like all these crazy things. And be like, what? This is from breathing? And it's like, yeah, it's very spiritual, but it's also very energetic, emotional, and physical as well.
Wow. So what is dimethyltryptamine? Is that what it is? I've heard of it, but
DMT. DMT.
Yeah, DMT. So is that a neurotransmitter?
So it's naturally occurring, right, in the body, in the pineal gland, and in the lungs. And if you watch that documentary, man, they did a really good job of explaining it as the spirit molecule. And it's what's responsible. So the pineal gland will secrete a certain amount of it at nighttime. And it's what really launches us in another dimension and puts us in the dream world where we feel it's real. Like all this is really happening. And then we wake up and we're like, oh, that was a dream, and we go back to our lives, but we just experienced the most miraculous thing, every night. And then, we either remember or we don't remember. And, that spirit molecule is microdosed during breath work, and some mystical things can happen. And I've witnessed, personally, but witnessed, hundreds, maybe thousands of some pretty cool stuff that happens.
Yeah. That's wild. And the fact that you don't have to take it in a bottle, but you can just biohack your body to, synthesize more of it. That's pretty incredible, man. Did you suffer from sleep issues prior to going down this path as part of your anxiety?
I never suffered from sleep issues. That was never my thing. I just suffered from anxiety, panic attacks. It's funny, people, they think that because I have a breathwork company, because I lead people through breathwork and talk about it and write books upon it, that I'm the best breather in the world. And I'm like, no, I was the worst breather in the world. That's why I'm doing this. I'd hold my breath. I'd like clench my fist. And like, actually, when I actually realized that breath was my issue, I was it was actually my birthday. It wasn't even a meeting. We were just having birthday dinner. And I was talking to my friend and his wife, and I'm clenching my fist under the table, not even realizing it. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there listening, and then all of a sudden go, and I gasp from air, and everyone looks at me, and I'm like, what the hell did I just do? Why did I just gasp for air? And I was like, oh my God, I was holding my breath. And then now that was like, my canary bird and my signal. And I started noticing I was doing it more and more and more. And I was like, oh my God, I'm holding my breath. Why am I holding my breath? That's the interesting thing about the breath. It's the only system in the body that is voluntary and involuntary. It works on its own, but you can also consciously control it. And at that moment I was like, oh my God, I got to fix this. I don't even know how to fix this. So, that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I'm the worst breather in the world.
Yeah. It's crazy what a stress response can manifest like in your body. Like you literally were so stressed, your body just stopped breathing on its own. And you had to catch it like manually and start doing it again. Something we're programmed to just do automatically all the time. We don't think about breathing. We just do it. Right. That's pretty phenomenal, man. And it's like everything you're describing here sounds so transformative. Like this has to be changing people's lives on like a major level. And I can't help but think there's got to be something very rewarding about the kind of work that you're doing, just being in service to somebody in need who needs to get past traumas, who needs to heal. Like, how do you feel when you're working with people and you're seeing these breakthroughs? It's got to be pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it is the best feeling because I feel very much aligned. I feel like I found my purpose. I found my calling. And that is, it is kind of solidified when I witness all of these transformations and all the testimonials. And it's really exciting in the beginning, but it's also something I even teach my teachers, like, hey, don't let this stuff get to your head, right? Because you're not actually healing these people. You're just showing them how to heal themselves. And it's a big part of it. And then people are in very much a vulnerable state in this. So, they'll come to you. So, what I've done is I've kind of shifted me, I don't do one-on-ones anymore or any of that. I train other teachers so they can go out there and we can spread this a lot faster. So that's where, and also corporations. I like the fact that, I can go into an organization that has 70,000 employees like Nike. We worked with Nike, we worked with NASA, we've worked with the Capital Group and some other cool companies. And
NASA, does that explain your buddy in the back there?
Oh yeah. Well, I wish they would have gave that to me, but I actually bought it on Amazon.
I love that. Does that freak you out at night?
No, because I don't sleep in there.
I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to.
No, it's cool. Yeah, but I geek out on the science behind it because I know people. That's how people learn, and me working with NASA was a big accomplishment because I'm taking something that's very woo-woo and delivering it to the mainstream, like companies like Nike and NASA. And NASA is very much left-brained individuals. They're literally rocket scientists. And they're like, I don't care about the woo-woo. I don't care about any of this stuff you're saying. What's the science and the facts behind it? So for that particular, to get that account, I actually brought with me one of the leading psychiatrists at UCLA, Dr. Helen Levetsky and Dr. Jack Feldman, who has been on the Huberman podcast, and he's a neuroscientist at UCLA. And I said, hey, NASA, I'm going to come in, I'm going to blow your minds with this breath work, but then also I'm going to create a panel afterwards, and we're going to talk about the science behind it. And they're like, ooh, yeah.
They like that
they
part,
like
right?
that part, and they agreed, and we did it, and we blew their minds. And then the HR director actually put into, I think it was Bloomberg or Yahoo or one of those, Business Insider, and he said it was the most positive, impactful event that the company has ever experienced, and it elicited more of a positive response than any previous event that they did. And even Nike said, what the breathwork was a game changer for their mindfulness. So I know the power of it. It's just a matter of getting it to the masses, and that's why I'm on this podcast. That's why it's my mission to write these books and do what I can while there's still breath in my lungs.
That's awesome, man. Talk about the boot camps and retreats that you do. Yeah,
so I actually just got back from Sedona. We did a 3-day retreat in Sedona, which is pretty cool. That's like the land of woo woo. It's an interesting place, Sedona. Every corner's a crystal shop and a healer, and that was cool.
Yeah. But I was literally just there a few days ago. We might have passed each other.
We might have passed each other actually, because I was there for the last week.
That's awesome.
So I just came from there. So we also have something called Breathwork Boot Camp, which is a 30-day challenge that we have people do, which is quite interesting because it's you think you learned it all, and the universe will show you don't know much. And when I launched that Breathwork Boot Camp, something really interesting happened that I was not expecting. People started sending us pictures of their waistline. I lost 12 pounds. I lost 9 pounds. And I'm like, why are people losing weight with breathwork? That was never the intention. So it happened so much that I'm like, I need to figure why this is happening. And then my findings was like, holy crap. What I found out, I'm like, why isn't no one talking about this? And it was 3 main things. Number one, anyone who's trying to lose weight, they're doing some sort of detox, right? Detox teas, detox this, detox that. Well, little do we know that 70% of the body's toxins is released through the lungs. And also 8.5 out of every 10 pounds of weight loss is through carbon dioxide. It's through breath work, not through other forms, through other forms of secretion like we think. So 85% of all weight loss is through carbon dioxide. 70% of all toxins is released through the lungs. And then stress, right, which has a lot to do with our weight. When the body's stressed, the adrenals release cortisol. And cortisol, according to Harvard, makes us crave sugary and fatty foods. And Harvard also said that 60 to 90% of all doctor's visits is stress related. So everyone's stressed, everyone's producing cortisol. Cortisol is making you crave those crappy foods. And what breathwork does is it drastically reduces your stress, which knocks down your cortisol levels, makes you not only feel better, but it makes you not crave crappy foods. So people are like, you know what, that chocolate cake, I just didn't want it anymore because they're not craving it. And between not craving crappy foods, which I call the guilt-free weight loss program now, the detoxing that you're doing, and just that deep diaphragmatic breath work, people were losing weight. And I'm like, man, I think I need to create the next like Billy Blank's breathwork boot camp and like get this out there and like get some testimonials behind it. I might actually do that. So but I wasn't intended people to lose weight. That was never my intention. It was just to make them feel better and get them to the next level and more comfortable in their own body and releasing the cortisol and the stress, and not to lose weight. But I think that's something that I'd like to look into more. And you might see you might see me on the, what's that channel? The Home Shopping Network. Give it a year. So yeah, and then I do teacher training retreats, twice a year.
Interesting experience with NASA needing the data, and I can totally get that. But I love how you've jumped into that pool, and you have some science to back this, and you have some research behind what you're doing. So the naysayers can ask all the questions they want, but clearly it's results driven, and people are experiencing a change. And the weight loss thing's phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing that when you just pursue wellness sometimes, or, in my own experience, sometimes a nutritional deficiency in a certain mineral that I was low in, I started taking it, and I took it for one reason, and then another health ailment went away in the process. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that whole being balanced, right? When you find that balance, everything, all the systems in your body just start working better. Even maybe that knee that you had that was sore, that arthritic knee, just goes away. And you didn't expect that, and you just forget about it because suddenly there's no pain. It's like, oh yeah, I noticed my knee hasn't hurt in months. So that's really phenomenal that you've made that connection with the weight loss.
Yeah,
man.
man, we're all seeking homeostasis, right? We're all looking to be balanced, and you're right, that does happen, and it comes in weird ways. You know, the breath does a lot of cool things, and you know, for me, you know, I study biohacking, all these different modalities, and at one point I realized I can't do them all. I can't do every meditation, every mantra, eat every supplement. So I had to sit back and say, all right, one, habit stacking has helped me a lot. And, you know, I won't get into habit stacking, but it's awesome. So you guys can look into that. But I said, you know, I only can focus on the things that move the needle. And breath work was the thing that moved the needle. Even Tony Robbins said, he said, if you're going to master anything, master the breath. So that is the one thing that I keep into my life as part of my daily routine. So, you know, you hear Gary Brecker, some, you know, really cool people out there just advocating for it. And if I just suggest if somebody hasn't done a deep diaphragmatic breathing, now there's many different kinds. I just suggest you try it. You know, get curious. You know, that's always my goal in this podcast, is never to sell anything or convince somebody of something. My goal is always to get them curious, because if I can get them curious, that curiosity is really consciousness at work, and that will lead them down the rabbit hole that they're looking for. Because all the crazy places I ended up was a little spark of curiosity, you know. And I'm on, you know, Google and YouTube or whatever, and then it just leads you to where you need to go. And you know, ignorance didn't kill the cat. You know, I'm sorry, curiosity didn't kill the cat. I think ignorance did. So the more curious you are, the more you're gonna your path's going to develop, and you'll see the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, definitely. How do you feel that this work you're doing has changed you as a person? Just seeing the results of the people that you work with and the improvements in their lives.
I mean, besides just me having, you know, tools that I didn't have before, I think knowing that I'm living in my purpose and I'm helping people, it's a good feeling to wake up to. And I think knowing that, because I've always been a seeker, it never was like that. I was always looking for the next and the best thing. And I was a serial entrepreneur, and I had this business, that business, this business, that business. And I'm like, all right, whatever one takes off first, that's the one I'm going to go with. And it wasn't purposeful. It wasn't, you know, purpose driven. It was about, you know, money and accomplishment. And then I had my spiritual awakening in 2011 and I started to dial in, you know, into what it was. And I finally reached a place where I'm just really grounded and present in who I am, why I'm here, and all about impact and empowering people. You know, I didn't have to wait until I was on my deathbed or in my 80s to realize that when you meet your maker, whoever you think that is, it doesn't matter. When you meet your maker and you get in front of your creator and your source, they are not going to ask you, Mike, how much money did you make? Right? It's going to be, how much impact did you make? How many people did you help? And, you know, and knowing that now and not when I'm on my deathbed, that's how I'm living my life.
That's awesome, man. Kurtis, how can more people get familiar with you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So one, if they're interested in just connecting with me, then Man from the Stars on Instagram. You know, I'm pretty active on there, and there's a lot of info on there. So Man from the Stars on Instagram. And if they're interested in trying a breathwork session, they can go on breathworkdetox.com and they'll see like a little program suite. They'll see virtual events. They can click that, or free teacher training consultation. They can click that, and, you know, whatever makes them curious, right? You know, follow their intuition and, you know, learn more about what I do, and, you know, and send me a message too. I'm pretty good with connecting with people.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes, and just appreciate you making the time, man. I love the work that you're doing, and it's great to see phenomenal results. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right, that's it. We're out of here, guys. Thanks for joining us for another episode, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you've delved into breath work, if you've tried it, drop us a comment. Let us know how it's worked for you, your experience. if you do it on the regular, if you've just tried it once. And always check us out at mikecpodcast.com. Until next time, bye, everyone.
The Mike C. Podcast.